Welcome to Swanson Reed's presentation on software sector guidance and assisting with getting software claims right. The applicability of the Australian R&D tax incentive to software development activity has been a widely discussed topic over recent years, and there have been some high-profile disputes on eligibility reported in the media and decided by the AAT. This has led to a misconception that software development activities are not eligible under the R&D tax incentive, which is not true. In fact, this presentation is based on a publication published by AusIndustry, the government department which regulates the eligibility of R&D activities. However, companies registering software development activities under the R&D tax incentive must take care to assess carefully, particularly in respect of ensuring they can show the activities generate new technical knowledge and are not merely an application of existing knowledge to a company's commercial or functional requirements. Within this presentation, the following will be discussed, based on the sector guidance provided by AusIndustry: core activities, determining unknown outcomes, unknown versus technical unknown, competent professionals, new knowledge, and eligibility of supporting activities. This presentation is based on AusIndustry's published material, Software Development Sector Guide for the R&D Tax Incentive, a link to which can be found within the slides. The latest AusIndustry software sector guidance was dated April 2022. Additional links which may be of assistance can also be found in the video description. Core activities are defined by the following in the legislation, whose outcome cannot be known or determined in advance on the basis of current knowledge, information, or experience, but can only be determined by applying a systematic progression of work that is based on principles of established science and proceeds from hypothesis to experiment, observation and evaluation, and leads to logical conclusions, and are conducted for the purpose of generating new knowledge, including new knowledge in the form of new or improved materials, products, devices, processes, or services. The company must show that before commencing an activity, there was no publicly available information to answer a technical, scientific unknown, how the above was established, i.e. what sources were investigated. This means the company needs to have substantiation, which may come in the form of computer science journals, open source code repositories such as GitHub, tech blogs, or patent searches. The identified unknown outcome investigated must be a technical unknown, not a business or commercial unknown. The following should be considered in determining a technical unknown: whether an objective is scientifically or technologically possible, whether existing knowledge or capability can be adapted to solve a problem, the use of known processes, technologies, and methodologies where the result or outcome is unknown, system unknowns, where the components of a system and their interactions are known, but the outcome/result of the system cannot be deduced from the outset, where something has already been shown to be possible but needs further work to make the technology more cost-effective. Unknown outcomes are typically measured by the following: whether a competent software developer in the field, i.e. a person who has knowledge, skills, and expertise in a field that relates to the R&D, knows or can determine the outcome without conducting an experiment as part of a systematic progression of work. On the basis of knowledge, information, or experience that is publicly available anywhere in the world, the company should search worldwide for an existing way to achieve their outcome before they start the R&D activity, and then keep records to demonstrate this. A core activity must demonstrate the following: unknown outcomes, the intention to generate new knowledge, a systematic progression of work. The company may use software development methodologies such as Agile, Waterfall, or Rapid. Regardless of the method used, the company will need to show the outcome couldn't be determined in advance and that the methodologies were used as part of a systematic progression of work. A systematic progression of work is defined as the hypothesis to be tested, the design and the setup of the experiments, including key variables to be tested, observations, evaluation of results, and logical conclusions made. A hypothesis should be an explanatory statement that can be proven, disproven via the conduct of an experiment. For example, whether an algorithm can compress a 12 megapixel image without exceeding the limits of a low power processor, i.e. 5 volts. It should not be a business objective or a statement that cannot be proven, disproven via the conduct of an experiment. For example, that an image filter can be developed to increase app take-up by consumers tenfold. The hypothesis should relate to a specific technical or scientific uncertainty or set of related knowledge gaps being tested by an experiment. Experiments are a set of tests undertaken to evaluate the hypothesis. Experiments should be recorded so they could be repeated. Observations should be recorded using qualitative, i.e. descriptive, information or quantitative, i.e. numerical data. Results of experiments should be evaluated. Logical conclusions should be drawn from the above. A failed or abandoned experiment may still be eligible. It appears to be a current compliance focus of Oz industry to review what specific new technical knowledge or unknown technical outcomes companies were seeking to investigate during their R&D activities. Oz industry also appear eager to understand the process companies went through in order to assess whether the knowledge they were seeking already existed or could have been determined in advance. Companies should be mindful that the knowledge generated should be new to the world or not available to a competent software developer, not knowledge that is just new to the organisation conducting the research. Knowledge might be known or likely to exist but is not known publicly because of confidentiality. New knowledge for a software development project would be expected to be dependent on a scientific and/or technological advance. Generating new knowledge does not need to be the sole purpose of an activity, but it must be a substantial purpose, and this purpose must be present from the outset of an activity. Records should be kept of the process companies went through to assess the state of knowledge existing before they commence R&D, and these may include notes of conversations with experts or evidence of searches. The guidance provides examples of core activities that are excluded but may be supporting activities, specifically developing, modifying or customizing software for internal administration, including the internal administration of business functions, activities that do not involve a systematic progression of work or don't have the purpose of generating new knowledge on an industry-wide scale. Examples that are explicitly excluded are business applications such as payroll and accounting, management information systems, enterprise resource planning systems. Supporting R&D activities must have a direct, close, or relatively immediate relationship with one or more core R&D activity or activities. It is not enough for the activity to simply be a part of the same project. It must be directly related to a core R&D activity. For example, setting up test beds, coding algorithms that will be used in an experiment, collating a data sample that will be used to conduct a relevant experiment. In some instances, activities must be undertaken for the dominant purpose of supporting a core R&D activity. This additional requirement occurs when activities are explicitly excluded from being a core activity, e.g., software for internal administration, market research, market testing or market development, produce or are directly related to producing goods or services. The purpose of undertaking the claim supporting activities must be the most important purpose. If an experiment is unsuccessful, this may still be an outcome that could not be known or determined in advance and may still have the purpose of generating new knowledge. If an activity or project is terminated after completing a supporting activity, but not the core activity it supports, The supporting activity can be eligible if a company can demonstrate that it had the intention to conduct the core activity, which did not eventuate, i.e. substantiation to show the link. Another important thing to note is the location or resources engaged to undertake R&D activities. Australian companies will commonly engage overseas-based software developers to work on a project, and often these offshore resources are engaged for reasons of cost. In such cases, the overseas-based development is not likely to qualify under the R&D tax incentive. In situations where a company seeks to include the cost of overseas-based development within their claims, companies must attain a pre-approval to claim the cost of overseas activities via a separate overseas finding application to demonstrate that their proposed overseas activity is eligible under the general criteria. There is a significant scientific link between the proposed overseas activity and an Australian core activity. The overseas activity must not be able to be conducted in Australia or its external territories for specified issues, including lack of availability to expertise and resources within Australia, and the costs for overseas R&D activities must be less than the costs of related R&D activities undertaken solely in Australia. Attaining an overseas finding can be a very involved process and often requires significant time and evidence. It's also important to note that being invoiced for overseas R&D activity via an interposed Australian entity is not a way around the finding process. An overseas finding is still required. Companies need to keep records or documentation relating to the activities they have carried out. These can include internal records such as screenshots, instant messaging histories, and exported content from task tracking or project management tools. More formal examples are literature reviews, email exchanges with industry experts, screenshots of questions posted on tech blogs/forums, details of failed attempts to use existing technology, code repositories or software versions, details of your testing strategy and approach, and project management documentation, for example, Gantt charts. Companies should also note that the compliance environment for software development activities is fairly dynamic and evolving. Over recent years, the AAT has heard disputes over R&D claims involving R&D activities which include the companies such as Absolute Vision Technologies Pty Limited and ISA, Royal Winds Pty Ltd and ISA. The facts and findings of these matters are publicly available and can be reviewed. In addition, AusIndustry publishes and updates their sector guidance periodically, and companies should keep updated with any new publications. That concludes the presentation of software sector guidance. If you have any questions about this presentation, please contact our office. Thanks for watching.